remembering reading about that too. And maybe my idea of what virtue signaling is a little bit off based on that definition. Like maybe I'm not signaling my virtue by doing my work in public on the laptop and letting people see and hiding my entertainment. Like I work in public, but I also work in private a lot too. And it's work. I'm not doing it and then living a completely different life behind the scenes. I'm going to start with a story that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. I just want to share it with you, is all.
Oh, okay, so it won't record. You don't have to worry about this recording.
Yeah, but I might leave it in, I don't know.
You can put it where it goes. All right, I'm all ears.
So my pipe band is planning a trip to Canada for a competition this summer. And it's a competition that they've attended in the past, and everybody loved it so much. But I'm not looking forward to the trip. I think it's stupid that we're going. I mean, that's my personal opinion of it. I don't want to go. That's the gist of it, I suppose. We're planning to go to the World Championship next year in Scotland, and also the year after that. And so I think it's stupid that I have to spend $500 on a flight to Canada this year when I have to spend $2,000 next year and the year after that. And I spent $500 on flights last year to go to Chicago. And so I don't know if I want to be a part of a group that's traveling so frequently, I guess. I mean, the travel that I've been accustomed to has been mainly nearby states, and I'm okay with that. But now we're flying everywhere.
You can drive for 8 hours. You don't want to fly across the world. How many of the band actually goes to those trips?
Probably 3/4 of the band, and most of the people that don't go are on instruments that they can do without. Like we have a lot of pipers, and so you can do without 5 of them if they just don't want to go.
You're a tenor.
So I'm a tenor drummer, and I'm one of 5 tenor drummers, and I can't just say, sorry, I'm not going to be there, because then my whole part is missing. I don't have the flexibility to just not go on a trip. I was seriously considering not going, just saying, sorry, you're screwed without me. You're going to have to figure out what to do. I mean, they've done this before. Like one year during COVID times, we traveled to a games, and I got sick right before, and I had to do a COVID test because they were doing no people with COVID allowed on these trips at these games, so because it came up positive, I didn't go, and they made do without me. So I know that they can just not have me there. So I was going to say, sorry, I'm not going on this trip. It's crazy. I mean, if I'm going to not go on a trip, I'd rather it be the Canada one and not the Scotland one next year.
Is it because you don't want to afford it?
Maybe I don't want to afford it. I can afford it. I know that I can afford it. I just maybe don't want to. Yeah. It's not in my values, maybe.
It's not high enough in your values to take this trip to Canada. Does it mean enough to you to try to persuade them not to go at all? Can you back out as a band?
I've been trying, since the start of them planning this. Like, I don't think that it's a good idea that we go. I don't think that we should go. It's not good to be traveling. I mean, it's not good for our group to be traveling. There are groups, there are grade 1 bands that travel like to 3 international places every single year. And that's just part of what they do. That's their values. But our values have never been to be a traveling group. And now it's kind of shifting toward that way. And I wonder if it's still a place that I can be in because my values don't fit there. I don't know.
That's identifying the way the group wants to go.
But I did end up deciding a couple of nights ago, I decided I'm going to go on this trip. I am going to Canada with the band. I'm just going to buy my own flights. I'll get there when they need me to be there, and I'm going to leave after everything is done. But I'm in control of when I get there. And and when I come back.
So you're not going to go with the tour group with all of their flights.
Right. And all of their flights are going to cost more anyway, because in order to book a group set of seats, you kind of have to pay a premium for that. My flight is a couple $100 cheaper than everyone else's anyway.
And you're going to just take it on the day before or the day after, on a Saturday. You'll fly on Saturdays instead of Tuesdays.
Something like that. Yeah.
That's the last time I flew. I just saw Saturday is the best time to fly. Saturday into Sunday, no one flies those days, and you have to sit for an hour in an airport, or a day. I sat for a day in the airport until something else happened, but that was fine. I could do that for $200.
Which it's funny with the flight I bought, the tickets that I bought to get there, I have to go east to get to Canada, but I'm flying west first, and then I'm going to have a 6-hour layover, and then I get to fly from west over to Canada.
Yeah.
We need to get me to a bigger airport, I suppose, first.
Yeah. For that cheap flight into Canada.
Yeah. Well, that's okay. 6 hours by myself in an airport might be the best thing in the world. I think I'd love that.
I've always enjoyed time in the airport. I mean, it's just, you've got you and your book and your computer. You can do whatever you want.
I know. With laptops these days, I mean, 10 years ago, I couldn't have imagined doing work at an airport. Like, I mean, they would have computer hubs, I guess, where you could go and sign in and take care of your stuff. But now we've got laptops. Our whole world is right here in this device.
Your world is, yeah, wherever you are, you can do everything.
So that's interesting. Oh, that kind of segues into what I want to talk about. So first off, let's introduce, this is our Do You Have a Minute conversation, Do You Have a Minute podcast, where Dad and I just talk about whatever is on our mind. And, you know, we plan ahead of time the general topic, but very frequently it turns into not what we intended 6 weeks ago when we wrote this down.
There's always new information.
Yeah. Sometimes when I am sitting down kind of in the open with my laptop on my lap, and it looks like I'm doing important things on my computer. Like my screen is there. I don't have a privacy filter on it. So it's obviously like a document that I'm working on, or a spreadsheet, or like when I'm editing the podcast, it's very, very obviously Audacity that's on my screen, and not Facebook or YouTube or any of these things, right? It's obvious what I'm doing. I'm working. I'm not playing. When I'm working, I feel a little bit more free to like let other people see what I'm doing. If I'm playing, I kind of sit myself in a corner and like, don't watch the videos that I'm watching, because this is my entertainment time. Don't watch Netflix with me. Like, but if I'm working on a spreadsheet, I'm like, hey, look everybody, look at what I've got on my computer. I'm busy. I'm doing stuff. I'm productive.
This is my avocation.
Yeah. In a way that's kind of signaling to other people how good I am. I'm doing good stuff, right? That's kind of how I feel sometimes, is am I so open about what I'm doing because I want people to see that I'm such a good person, that I'm so productive, that I'm important. I'm doing important stuff, so I am important.
And when you're doing important stuff that you value as important, you want people to see. You want to get attention. From the narcissistic supply, you want the supply of their appreciation that you're a good person.
Yes.
Whether it's supply or whatever it is, they're acknowledging. You want them to acknowledge, hey, you're a good person. That looks like work.
Yeah. I certainly don't want them thinking I'm a average person that just looks at their phone everywhere they go. I'm just going to spend the next 6 hours looking at Instagram. Yeah.
Yeah. And find out what else it's going with.
Yeah. Right. Where could cat videos take you? I mean, the book that I was reading suggests that it could take me to the deepest, darkest places of the internet.
Right. Well, sure it can, especially if it's cats. If you watch dog videos, you can't go that direction. Cat videos take you to the deepest, darkest places. Dog videos take you to obedience and everything good.
That's right. Dogs are superior. They're obedient. They're trainable.
the word that comes to me to ask you about, do you feel ashamed when you do scroll the internet, Instagram? Is there shame in that?
I don't feel shame while I'm doing it, but when I reflect on what I've been doing, I feel shame. I feel ashamed that I wasted time and that I'm just like everyone else, all of the other zombies around me. I don't want to. When I'm being mindful, when I'm inspecting my surroundings and myself, I don't like what I see in other people so I work at a gym and people on the exercise machines are looking at their phones like the whole time. They're watching YouTube shorts and Instagram reels. And I can see that because all of the equipment is faced so that when you're on the running track, like you see everyone's backs. And so you see their phones. All of these zombies working out, but also completely mushing their brains while they're doing that.
With chewing gum, I had a conversation the other day, like music. Music is chewing gum for the ear. Maybe that's what scrolling is just chewing gum. They're not gathering any data. And they're in a private setting. So my conversation the other day with one of your siblings was, music is something they listen to all the time. And I said, well, that's chewing gum. When do you do that? When do you listen to music? And you've got to listen to music when you're in public. When you're at a construction site, let's say, and you can't be listening to a podcast or
because you're
Joe Rogan
interrupted all the time.
Or do you have a minute? You can't dedicate your focus to that activity. So you have to have music in that case. And he said, yeah, that makes sense. You can't really have something you're going to have to focus on. But I said, when you're in your truck, there's no reason for you to listen to music in your truck. You're by yourself. You can think. You have to use that time as your learning thinking time and pick a podcast, pick a book, pick something other than music. Music is what you use in public. It's just chewing gum if you're alone, and there's no reason for it. That's my thought. It may be wrong, but...
Well, it makes sense. I mean, I agree with it. Even if it's wrong, it's right for me.
And it feels like a virtue to you as opposed to a shamedness.
Yeah. When you're doing the right thing, when you know you're doing the right thing, that it feels like you're being virtuous and not sinful, I suppose.
And so your discussion about is there anything wrong with signaling that virtue? You feel a compunction to signal that virtue.
Yeah. And I think that's a sin to signal the virtue. Okay, so I did look up because I know that there's something in the Bible about this.
Right. Matthew 5 and 6.
Right. The Sermon on the Mount. Matthew 6 is the one that specifically says...
Yeah, so you looked that up.
I did. In preparation for this conversation.
Alms be seen. Correct.
When you pray...
it was just in your regular study, right?
Yes, I was not... I just...
On your regular daily study.
I read the Bible every day.
See, and that would be a virtue signal. I don't know.
Talking about it would, yeah. Okay, so verse 5 starts out, and when you pray, you shall not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the corners of the street, that they may be seen by men. Assuredly, I say unto you, they have their reward. But you, when you pray, go into your room, and when you have shut your door, pray to your Father who is in the secret place, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you openly. So that might be the verse that identifies don't be so open about all the good things that you're doing.
Right. And for what reason? That verse tells you the reason to do it.
If you're doing good things for, let's say good things is the prayer of the hypocrites out on the corner and openly in the synagogues and stuff. Their reward is the accolades of men.
Right. It's the signal. They sent the signal out to the room, and the room is that's a good guy. He's praying. I know he's praying. He's got a cross on his face, so he is a good Christian man.
Right. But is that all of the reward that they get? That's the only reward they're going to get is the praise of men.
That's the Ash Wednesday thing we just went through, right?
The Ash Wednesday? Is that what you said?
Yeah. Did you notice any of that?
I didn't notice anything outside of it being on the calendar.
Even in the news. I mean, I saw it on it. Of course, when I browse Instagram. I don't browse Instagram. I browse YouTube. And so I'll sit there but I don't know that there's anything bad about me browsing YouTube, but if I have time, I'll do that. And I don't necessarily feel bad when I finish. So I don't know that I'm ashamed of that, but I don't spend a whole lot of time on it. But I noticed 2 of the videos on that Wednesday had people with the ash on their forehead. So it was interesting.
They were signaling something.
Yeah, that's the purpose, to signal that you are entering this sacred season appropriately. But that's an appropriate signal they feel in their society. You know, we've talked about what place it is right. It's right for that community to mark themselves on the forehead with black marker and ash, so that they know that they are that class of people. But it is signaling to their people and to everyone else. They don't feel like it's a sin. They feel like it's a religious statement.
Other ways. So virtue signaling is among the people that I affiliate myself with a little bit, those who have left the LDS church. Virtue signaling is a little bit cringy, gross. How do I put it? We don't like to see it. We see it and we're like, oh yeah, we see LDS members virtue signaling.
Like what? I mean, how do you know that an LDS person is an LDS?
If they're wearing garments.
Okay, so you can see under my shirt.
Yeah, we can see that. There's
a t-shirt. And naturally that t-shirt is not going to be just a normal t-shirt. It's white. It's going to be garments.
Well, and here's another signal. It's not virtue signaling if you're unconsciously wearing a shirt under your shirt and it just happens to be showing. It's virtue signaling if you've got like gym shorts on and you're just intentionally wearing just a little bit shorter so that when you're running, people can see that you've got your garment bottoms on, you know. Or one thing I see a lot is women wear their garment tops, but then they wear another top that's so tight that you could see like the edges, and you can see obviously they're wearing garments, so they are a good person. That's that's a Mormon right there.
Okay, and from the outside it looks like a virtue signal. What about from the inside? Would there be a valid reason to do that?
A valid reason to signal that you're virtuous?
No. Could they not be signaling? Could it be possible that the person wearing the garments under their shirt is not signaling?
Maybe if they just had no control over the clothing that they were able to wear.
Okay, and one of those things is the garment. From the LDS structured environment, wear it day and night. That's it. You wear it day and night in every activity.
Yeah, but they could choose another top. But if they couldn't choose a looser top, if they had to wear that tighter top, then that'd just be out of their control.
And I don't know, I'm not a woman who does sports activities, but perhaps you need that tighter top to keep yourself intact while you're doing some certain activity.
Okay.
I don't know.
Everything will just fall apart.
When I was a teenager, chafing occurs. That's a problem. If your shirt is too loose, then you don't want chafing to occur inside your shirt. You need to keep it, but that's done with bras and holding things tightly. It's not necessarily done with the outer shirt, but maybe there's some reason for an outer shirt to not be loose.
Yeah, well, and that would be giving people the grace to like how is the best way to phrase that? You give them grace. They do things because they need to do things the way they do them, and not because they're intentionally trying to signal to you that they're better than someone else might be, right?
Let me give you an example. In my life, I happen to be of that class of people.
Yeah, you affiliate yourself with those kind of people.
Right. The garment seems to be something that I adhere to. And it's not that I want to signal with it, but I determined, and as we discussed it, I can go swimming. I've gotten a swimming shirt. So it used to be that, when you go swimming, you're not going to wear your garments, because that's not, you're in trunks and that's it. You're wearing trunks. And other than that, it's inappropriate to wear that in public that way it's seen. But I've got a swimming shirt and my trunks are long enough. So I've got long trunks and a swimming shirt. When I go swim in the pool, I can do that. And I've determined that I can wear the garments while I'm swimming. There's no reason not to. But no one needs to know that. And under my swimming shirt, you could probably see it. People could probably look at it. But if they do see it, it's not that I'm trying to impress them that I'm so ultra religious that I'm wearing that. But I'm using it is a religious thing. It's the deepest held value. If my value is to be as obedient as possible, then I'm going to try to do that. I'm going to buy a swimming shirt.
Well, if you were Jewish, you would be wearing your cap everywhere you go, even in the in the pool.
Whatever that thing is called.
Yarmulke?
Yeah, that's on.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yarmulke, something like that. So your head is always covered.
That's a way that you show your religious devoutness.
And they're not necessarily signaling, or the Hasidic Jews who have the curls in the front, they're not necessarily virtue signaling, I'm better than you. It's just, this is my practice and I am practicing this.
I can't think of a reason why you would not want to wear your garments swimming. It is because of, what the pool is, what the chemicals in the pool. Like, I mean, there are the baking soda swimming pools that it's salt water kind of.
Brine, salt water, stuff like that.
Right. But then there are the other pools that use chlorine to keep them clean. So that would not be good to always be putting your...
On fabric?
There's specific types of... I mean, swimwear is made out of specific types of fabric. It's not made out of cotton. It's made out of like polyester and nylon and spandex, things like that. And they actually don't last very long anyway because of the chemicals in the pool. But they're made to dry quickly. Your garments aren't going to dry as quick as, especially if you're wearing 2 layers of clothing.
If they're cotton.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they're cotton. But
so it's just not made to be swimwear is what I think.
All right. So you buy the one that is made to be swimwear. I don't know. I'm sure there are polyester, but that's all.
That's a tangent. So unintentional virtue signaling, yeah, it's probably not a problem. What if like somebody is intentionally virtue signaling? They're signaling like me and my laptop in a public place doing work. That's kind of intentional, even though I don't go into it thinking that I want everyone to see I'm a good person.
What I do when I've been at a restaurant or somewhere that I needed to do spreadsheet stuff and I needed to work. So I take my laptop into a McDonald's. Let's say I remember a time that I did that. I was going to be there, or I'll do it at the hospital. The last time I was at the hospital up in a town near me, I had my computer with me, but I didn't I didn't face the wall so that everyone could see what's on my screen. I mean, but I did kind of know I'm here working on my computer. I didn't try to hide it especially. But I don't know that I was pointing out when I was in the McDonald's what I'm thinking. I did have the screen turned, so anyone that was ordering food at the desk could see that on my screen there was spreadsheet materials, not just pictures scanning.
Yeah. Did you intentionally do that though?
I remember thinking about it. I didn't intentionally say, here, now I'm going to sit this way and make sure I'm in this chair. But I remember I thought about it that day. I said, they're going to see, but they're going to see that I'm not doing anything strange. So I'm okay with them seeing it. I think that's what my thought was. I'm okay with them seeing my screen rather than I want them to see, or should I hide it?
There's a lot of creepy weirdos out there that do use public networks to do their shameful internet use.
Have you run across anything like that? Have you seen it?
I haven't seen it directly, but I've been a third party in a situation where somebody did get someone else in my area found someone doing that in a public place, and I didn't see it, but I was there. So I don't know. That's something else, I guess.
I wanted to say, okay, the scripture you brought up, Lloyd Douglas wrote the book Magnificent Obsession. You familiar with that work?
Magnificent Obsession?
Obsession, yeah.
Okay.
So Lloyd C. Douglas, he wrote The Robe. He was writing about Christ's life and things, but in The Robe. But this Magnificent Obsession is how Dr. Hudson, there's stories. It's a good series of information, but this talks about that specific verse. He says on this one page, you had a page ripped out of a Bible, and it changed his life by saying that what you're doing, the things you do in secret. Don't like everyone think you're doing this, so that the Father which seeth in secret shall reward thee openly. So how I tied that to this virtue signaling, you don't want to signal because then you have your reward. Your signal is your reward. And that's what they say, that because they have their reward. The other thing that ties to is Emerson. Lloyd C. Douglas, he says they have a, what did he call it? It's a journal. So you keep track of what you do, but so that no one can read it, they wrote in cryptic sound. My reasons for doing this in cipher will be made plain as you proceed. So he kept his journal in cipher of the good things he was doing in secret between him and God. And as he did good things and charitable events through the city, and his philanthropy was done that way. And based on that, based on giving it out and not having it anonymously, assisting people, everything came back to him. His business thrived, everything thrived. You want your business to thrive by being a good person. But if you let people know that you're the one being a good person, that you are, who is it that has their foundation that wants to be seen? Bill Gates. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. They want to know, the world to know all the good things they're doing.
It's named after them. It's a big thing.
And it's a big thing for them. And so if you're out there with the world, that is your reward. If you're quiet about it, then the Father can reward you openly, who seeth in secret. So you don't want anyone to know the things you're doing.
That's depending on which rewards you want. Like, I want public rewards, so I'm going to do this in public. I'm going to do it publicly. But if I want God rewards, then I better keep it secret.
That's assuming that there is a dichotomy between those two, that God is not in public. Emerson said it this way. Let me read this. Maybe this will answer that idea too. In his work, Compensation, there is a third silent party to all our bargains. The nature and soul of things takes on itself a guarantee of fulfillment of every contract. So he's talking about the Father or God or the third silent partner, so that honest service cannot come to loss. If you serve an ungrateful master, serve him the more. Put God in your debt. Every stroke shall be repaid. The longer the payments are withholden, the better for you. For compound interest on compound interest is the rate and usage of this exchequer. It does take some thought to parse that out. But anything you do, if you're serving someone who's not recognizing your service, it's virtue signaling, and they're not recognizing that it's a virtue, what you're doing, but you know it's a virtue. In your heart, it's your highest value. Do it all the more. Putting God in your debt, and he uses the term directly God. The Father in the scripture, Magnificent Obsession, says, he who seeth in secret will reward thee openly. And that's what it is. He that seeth in secret shall reward thee openly. And so Emerson put it that direct way, that you'll receive compound interest on compound interest in payback. It may not be immediate, but it's going to come from the world. It's not going to come from some spiritual feeling. You're not looking for a feeling when you're working with God. You're looking for your business to thrive, for the money to show up that can buy you that plane ticket.
Still, God pays you in worldly rewards?
Right. Exactly. Worldly rewards.
Because that's the only... But what about after death rewards? I mean, can't you... Why would Emerson be saying... Is it Emerson? Or...
Yeah.
Yeah. Why would he be saying that God is going to reward you here in your life if there is an eternity after this life that he should actually be rewarding you in? Because God rewards happen after you're dead.
How do you know that? See, there you go. And that's what Lloyd C. Douglas was battling against too. He was battling against the idea, in Emerson, battling against the idea that God's rewards happen after death, in the eternities in heaven. You're going to get your rewards in heaven. That's not even what this scripture says.
I wonder if they're saying that to make people feel better. Like, it's okay. You can have your rewards now. You don't have to wait. Your rewards will come before your mortal life is over. Do your good now, because you're going to get rewards now. You'll be able to see them here before you die. That's what they're saying.
And is that not what this just said? The scripture that you just read. When thou prayest, and Go into thy closet, do it in secret, so that the Father which seeth in secret, thy Father which seeth in secret, shall reward thee openly. It doesn't necessarily state, I guess you could interpret that to say openly in the future, openly in heaven, openly after you've lived your life. You live in hell while you're here on earth, and then when you get to heaven, it'll be heaven because you're going to get the open reward from God because of all the good you did. But you have to do all your good and live through hell.
Here's one problem I see with that, thinking that you'll get rewards here on earth, is bad things happen to good people. And darling little children die when they're 5. And if they can't have rewards here on earth, then why does anybody get rewards here on earth? All of the rewards would make sense that the reward comes after you die, because good people suffer.
Why do good people suffer? That's the question.
And they suffer their whole life. People in third world countries have difficult lives, and they die when they're 20s, and maybe they're super supportive of their family. They work hard. They don't do anything considered sinful, and they still have a very difficult life. Why would us white people in America be receiving godly rewards on earth? It just, yeah. What do you say?
So that's you're looking at the big picture. And right now in Syria, there was just news articles about that and the genocides that are occurring there still. The Hamas in Israel and how they killed people, took over societies, 1,200 people or some thousands of people that they just slaughtered. Those people didn't do anything bad. They were just in their house on a Tuesday afternoon or whatever day it was, and the armed insurgents come in and slaughter the house. You can get killed in your house for no reason. Someone was being evil. You're trying to prove, did that person do something bad? Who, somewhere else in the scripture says, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? He says none, but that the glory of God can be made manifest was the answer Christ gave to that question. How come this guy's blind?
He's blind so that God can show everyone how good he is. He can signal his virtue.
God can signal his virtue. The glory of God can be made manifest, which may mean that. There are miracles. As miracles have occurred, that is kind of a virtue signal, isn't it? Is a miracle a virtue signal? There's something good here happening. And how we talked about miracles, magic and miracles, they're just something you don't understand yet. There's some misunderstanding as to why you think it's magic or why you think it's a miracle. So it looks like a miracle to us, but in reality, it's maybe from Emerson's statement, it's just a compensation. That person deserved to have his sight restored or to have his sight taken,
There might be the belief that people that live in third world countries deserve the hardships that they have to endure.
From a different perspective, would there be a perspective that says that person living in malnutrition in Africa, and we've seen those pictures with the kids that are stomach bloated and very skinny, no muscle at all, and flies all over them? I mean, that you'd hate to live in that condition. Is it possible that person loves to be alive, even though flies are all over him and he's very hungry and malnourished?
Is the love to be alive a reward from God, though? I mean, it's not whether they like their life or not. It's that it seems kind of unbalanced. The rewards to the people in first world countries that are doing their prayers in secret and all of that, the rewards from God seems a little bit unbalanced compared to those who would do their prayers in secret in third world countries.
And the question would be whether the third world country even cares about prayers in secret or public.
So they deserve their lower rewards because they just don't care about rewards. Praying and
because they don't know God, so God doesn't know them.
Yeah,
that's picky-ish. That's not right.
It feels like none of it is right.
Right. It could be mythology, right? It's just a myth. If you choose to agree with it, you choose to live it,
and you attribute all your successes to God because He cares about you.
And there's just an example of 3 people. I mean, someone put God. I mean, certainly the scriptures, the Bible, Matthew was written with a belief in God. Both Lloyd Douglas and Emerson Ralph Waldo Emerson, believe in God because they stated it that way. The other film we talked about before, Flywheel, how it says you're going to receive benefits in this life. You remember the movie Flywheel from the Kendrick brothers?
I don't think I've seen it.
He was an auto dealer in a town and was going out of business. Everything was lost, and he was worldly, putting out, trying to rip people off and things. The story is good. We'll have to reference it here, but Flywheel is a story. He started studying the scriptures and saying, now I believe in God, but how has God helped my business? And he determined the things to do. You've got to treat others right. It's the golden rule, and it's everything else. So he decided to not rip people off anymore in the cars he was selling. And then it turns out he and his wife were working through the budget, and there was an amount that they came up with that's the money they had available after all of the bills were paid, and this is what's available right now. And he said, tell me that number again. And he was just looking through the files to see, he was identifying in the last year how many people he'd ripped off and what amount he charged over a reasonable price. And they were the exact same number. He says, that's a sign from God. I've got to give all that money back. And so he did. He went and gave all the money back. And the bank was going to foreclose on him that Friday. And some news, there was a guy who came into work for him that it got out on the news. He was an undercover news reporter reporting on how car dealers rip people off. And he came and worked for him. And the news article came out that this guy is honest about his business. He's trying to do things right. And he has this, a lot full of cars. So that next day after the news report went out on the news, hundreds of people came and bought him out in one day. And the banker came that afternoon and said, what'd you do with the cars? I came here to close out your loan and foreclose. He says, well, I'm going to pay it off. We were blessed. And so that was the idea, is that in that story, and really in all of Kendrick's films, is that you trust in God and God will reward you openly in this life right now, facing the giants in football games. You do the right thing, you're going to get blessed to be able to play the championship game.
Yeah. Unless you live in Africa or...
Unless you don't know any of these rules. Yeah, unless you're not operating under those rules. So the people in Africa, I'm only assuming they don't have the scripture in front of them. They're not trying to do anything but survive. Third world can think about these myths and these ideas, and they can scientifically try to prove it to be true or not. In a first world country, you can do that. In a third world country, you can't do anything but try to find your next grasshopper to eat.
Yeah, and none of that sounds wrong to you? That God would withhold blessings from somebody that can't even do anything about it?
From the different perspective, how valuable is it to have a life? If in God's perspective, you need your body, the plan of happiness, as it's talked about.
That's a blessing in itself, right? Even having a body.
The fact that you're alive, whether you're alive in pain or whether you're alive in darkness or in silence. Who was it? The blind deaf girl?
Helen Keller.
Helen Keller. She could have just lived blind and deaf in an orphanage her whole life, but someone helped her understand, and what was her last name?
I don't know.
Her teacher.
I don't know what her last name is.
And somebody helped her to understand, and she lived a very fruitful life, even though she never heard or saw. Plenty of people live lives that are in pain, but it's still a life. And some, like you said, are taken at 5.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree that being alive is a blessing in itself. But what I don't like is that, and this is completely not all about virtue signals, apparently. We've evolved into a completely different discussion here. But what I don't like is that people living good lives to their highest capability in third world countries are not receiving blessings galore from God like people in first world countries are supposedly receiving.
Blessings galore. Blessings they can handle. Let's call it that way.
Okay.
You wouldn't give a buffet meal to someone who's malnourished. It wouldn't work.
Right, but you would give them a farm, you would give them animals, you would give them a place to live that is more comfortable than...
And who's you?
You would, God would lift up the whole community to make it better and better and better.
Right. And is that not happening? The reason we have that picture of the person in Africa, and this was 40 years ago, we had these pictures of kids in Africa. Today, that picture must be different. because the angels that are alive on the earth today that are helping, doing God's work, and that's Peace Corps, that's their role. They're a God-fearing people. They've been there for 50 years or 80. They're continuing to benefit and bring them nutrition. And that's what Bill and Melinda Gates are doing publicly. Let's bring nutrition and vaccinations to Africa so they can survive and they don't have to all be killed by AIDS. Let's stop some of the bad stuff that's happening in the world that we can see. And so that is happening. There's not a people that we're ignoring as a world economy, I don't believe, that we're saying, just let them die out. They don't deserve to even be talked to. They're untouchables. I guess in India you have that untouchables idea. I don't even know if that concept still exists.
Yeah, there's still tribes that in forests that were trying to preserve their culture by not even flying planes overhead,
Oh yeah, that's possible.
It's weird but important.
Well, like that movie, The Gods Must Be Crazy.
Yeah, I remember that one.
African or whatever, that something fell out of the sky, a bottle fell out of the sky.
I think I can see a little bit how a believer in God would recognize the works of their fellow humankind towards people in poverty could be God working through them, right? And if it wasn't for God, then maybe none of that would be happening, right? That's the supposition.
We would still be feudalistic and killing the neighbors like they are in Syria, and Hezbollah would still be that type of society, and that type of society is still on the earth, and that's what's crazy. I don't understand that. It's how they can still think that we can kill the neighbors and we'll take over their country by killing them.
Well,
That doesn't make sense.
You're forgetting something else about Earth. You're forgetting Satan. He's still here. There's God, but there's also Satan, and he's inciting hatred in the hearts of whoever he can, whoever isn't God centered.
Okay, so let's pull this back to the signaling thing.
Okay.
Is Satan signaling?
Yeah, so I was actually thinking about that too. I put my tattoos on my arms specifically, kind of intentionally, so that people could see them. I didn't do them in secret. I know a couple of people who have secret tattoos. Like they're not secretive about their tattoos, but they're not visible. They're not in places that would be visible if they were wearing regular clothes, right? My tattoos are visible, and that's kind of a virtue signal toward the people that appreciate tattoos. It's not the opposite of virtue signal, like as far as praying in public and donating money and in front of people and talking about it. It's the same thing. I'm signaling another group's virtue to them. And so people who are killing in Syria or Gaza or all of these places, they're signaling, like these individual people participating in this thing that they believe in, they're openly signaling their virtue to their group.
The thing they hold is their highest virtue. So their virtue may not be my virtue. It's their highest value, and they're signaling that openly.
They want people to see. If they didn't want people to see, then they'd stay behind an anonymous username on Facebook and YouTube and Reddit, and they would try and do their work from there. But if you're out there in the protests or in the mobs, you're in there kind of signaling that you're a part of this and you want people to know.
You want people to know you.
Yeah.
Maybe, but most of those, I saw some reports on the Palestinians. Every Palestinian that they interviewed, kids, everyone wants to kill the Israelis, because the Israelis took over their land. They were given that land inappropriately. The Palestinians feel like this is our land. Israel needs to disappear from the face of the earth. That's their feeling. Yeah. Revenge. They want to take their place back. And they think if we kill them, we can have our place back appropriately. Instead of living peaceably in a community together, they want to eradicate a race of people like the Russians wanted to do, or the Germans and the Russians. They wanted to eradicate a different race of people, different That's happened time and again. Their virtue signal was we are the Aryan innate culture needs to survive, and that's the best culture, and we're going to eradicate any other culture.
Yeah, for some people the intent might be to signal their virtue, but for other people it's like a deep-seated desire for vengeance, for the right, which they believe is the right thing to happen.
Right.
Well, we're not talking about those people. We're talking about the people that signal virtue just because they want to be seen as virtuous.
The way I read that virtue signaling. Virtue is the good, and this is how I wrote it. The good based on the perspective that you were pandering to, or that you're working within your community. The virtue is what your community says. Either if it's the 0th tier, it's just you, or if it's your family, or if it's your community, your church. Your virtue is identified by the community you're a part of, and that's the perspective you go through to identify the virtue. And we talked about that. Maybe if you're on Satan's side, then Satan's the virtue. If you're on a side of a cult, that cult is your virtue. To signal it. So what my online search was, signaling is someone who says, I am this way, but then they're hypocritical in that they don't actually. If you're virtue signaling, then you're showing the world that you're this type of person. I've got the black on my forehead, but I have no idea what lint means, and I don't care. But I just want to signal that I am part of the group. I'm in the in crowd because this is my community. That's what I kind of think that Democrats, the protests right now. I ran across a couple of them in a couple of towns I was in, and you've probably seen them on the street in your town, right? And they're out there chanting and saying honk for this, and they have their signs, this is democracy is dead, and just fancy things. And they're flying the flag upside down. They're holding their flag, the American flag, upside down, is in distress, that this is a distressful situation. I went and talked to one of the groups. I had some time, so I parked my car and walked over and talked to them. I was surprised that one of the ladies actually is thinking about what she's doing. I think she's in the wrong place. I don't think anyone can stand out there, hold those signs and chant if they're not just virtue signaling. So I think that's all a virtue signal. They're following the talking points. And so that's what I was trying to. I got into a conversation a little bit. She said she's thought about this and she believes that all this stuff is actually true. She's hated Trump for the last 30 years and has never had any change in that feeling. So nothing he's done has ever changed on her virtue. So the virtue to her is that that's a bad side. No matter what they do, it's going to be bad. But she apparently is thinking it through. I thought everyone's just following the talking points and just virtue signaling, not taking action.
You must think that protests aren't actually effective. I think a lot of people think protests are effective. They think it's an effective way to make change.
Okay. And who are a lot of people that think that?
The people that go and do protests. Those are the ones that.
And that's what I'm saying. I don't believe it's the people that do the protests, because the signs in these two different cities, hundreds of miles apart from each other, probably 130 miles apart, not hundreds. In these two cities, the signs were exactly the same. The process was exactly the same. They're still following the exact same talking point and procedures.
There's an organization that's making it easier to protest.
The procedure was handed out and said, across the country, these are the signs you're going to use. These are the words you're going to use. Pick which sign you want to put out, but you're going to go use these signs because these are the effective way to do it. And so they're doing that. The other reason I stopped by is I saw a white bus that's typical of the buses that bus people in this town. And I was wondering if they all came in that bus, if the bus dropped them off.
From another place?
They didn't. They said, yeah, we just came from work. We're just here. And they all went back when it was over. They went back into their cars and drove away. They didn't go back to the bus. So I had assumed incorrectly that they were shipped in to be this protest, and then they would all get in the bus and go back to Chicago or wherever they came from. I don't know.
Wherever the Democrats are all rallied together and making trouble for all the Republicans.
Right. Making all these plans. So the signaling, I think, is that it's not acting. They're not activists. They're not actually doing anything. They just want to look like they're activists. I think most of the people in the protests have no idea what they're really doing there.
They go protest for 2 hours and then they get back to their regular life and watch Instagram and eat their Cheetos and just wait for the next protest to come up, right?
I had that experience when I was when I was in high school, there was, well, the Ayatollah Khomeini. I mean, there was things happening in Iran that in my little small town, 2,000 people in town, a school, high school of 100 kids, maybe it was 300 kids, but a protest was organized and the news got word of it and they came and, I guess we invited the news. We have us little kids walking down the street, high school kids, with our signs about Iran. We had no effect, no reason to even think about Iran. We didn't even know where it was. None of us knew where it was. The guy that organized it probably didn't even know where it was. But he said, here's an idea. I want to get notoriety. I want to be seen of men. So let's create a protest. And the protest was just a signal. It was just virtue signaling. So it was, we're good people caring about this issue. We didn't even know. I, at least, knew nothing about it.
Yeah, well, 90 something percent, this is a statistic that I'm making up right now, but I'm certain that 99% of high schoolers know nothing about what's going on outside of their city, outside of their high school.
Out of their clique. It's just their friend group that they know about.
Right. You just don't think about other things when you're in high school. You think about your marching band competitions and your football rivalries, and that's it. That's all that matters.
Yeah, that's your whole world.
And then if your football team happens to be like, okay, we're going to do a game where we honor those people who fought in the Afghanistan war, like they would then suddenly you care about that for that night, but then who cares about it after that,
The idea of signaling, though, is that you're not doing anything. You're not really there. You're hypocritical.
Yeah. Okay. I'm remembering reading about that too. And maybe my idea of what virtue signaling is a little bit off based on that definition. Like maybe I'm not signaling my virtue by doing my work in public on the laptop and letting people see and hiding my entertainment. Like I work in public, but I also work in private a lot too. And it's work. I'm not doing it and then living a completely different life behind the scenes.
Right. So if you signal you're actually doing something, is that really virtue signaling, or is it
just being virtuous?
Is it bragging? Is it bragging? Being virtuous, but bragging about it. So there's a difference. Is it conceit? I want you to see that I'm doing all this good stuff. I'm actually doing good stuff. I'm not signaling that I'm doing good stuff. I'm doing good stuff. So it's not virtue signaling. It's just conceited. It's egocentric, narcissistic, perhaps.
Maybe. We're still reading this 7 Habits of Highly Effective People book. And sometimes I have to read it in public because that's where I am. And I know that I need to get so many pages in per day to finish it by the time we're going to talk about it.
By next week.
Yeah.
We have a deadline.
So this book, I am okay with people seeing that I'm reading it. If I'm reading Game of Thrones, then I have it on my e-reader so no one can see the cover. I don't want people talking to me about Game of Thrones, but I do want them talking to me, seeing that I'm reading this and talking to me about 7 Habits. I mean, it's just, there's certain genres of books where I'm like, I don't care for anybody to know that I'm reading this.
Have you had a conversation open based on that?
No, not about the book. Someone asked me what I'm reading because they noticed that I was reading, but they didn't talk about, nobody ever talks to me about what I'm reading.
They didn't have an opinion.
Nobody has an opinion, which I think is another thing that I look for. I'm like, someone's going to ask me about this book that I'm reading, but nobody ever does.
It'd be great. I mean, that's why we're in this conversation. We're hoping that someone else will open that conversation. If I ever had, I did note one of the things we talked about with someone, because they told a story that one of these conversations we have matched. And I said, we came into the same idea, same conclusion. And with that conclusion, so I introduced it. But in the conversation, you'll come up, we were talking about other things anyway. Things always connect to me, but I'm trying to think if there's something that connected to them and it spurred their story. What I was reading spurred their comments. I don't recall that any time. I mean, I've spent a fair amount of time on buses in my life reading books, and no one on a bus has ever approached me that I can recall.
Yeah. When I see someone else reading a book, even though I might want to talk to them about that book or ask them about the book, I think if I was reading a book, maybe I would not want to be bothered. I brought this book here for a reason, so I could read it, not so I could talk to people, you know? Even though I think it would be so cool if somebody asked me about a book, I'm really hesitant to ask anyone else about what they're reading.
Yeah.
I don't want to be
That's
intrusive.
like we talked about that before about being on airplanes. You're in close proximity for 3 or 4 hours at a time, and you pick up your book. You can either talk about the book you're reading or they're reading, or you can just live in your own little seat. And usually I'm more comfortable living my own little seat, not even talking to the people.
And you prepare yourself for that. You're going into this experience with the expectation that you're going to get some stuff done, or you're going to listen to so many podcasts while you're on this plane. So
and sitting in the airport, for a day, 12 hours, 6 hours at the airport, you don't necessarily want to talk to people. You're going to cordon yourself off in a seat and be studious.
One thing I came across while I was watching some videos on virtue signaling was the opposite, which is not virtue signaling. One opposite would be vice signaling, where you might signal to a group that you're with something surprising about you. Like you could say you're in a business meeting, but then you just mention that you were, I don't know, playing StarCraft or something like that. Like talking about how you do something that somebody stereotypically in your position would not be doing. And so you signal to them your vice, and somehow that breaks expectations and makes them think about you differently. So that's the purpose of that, signaling your vice, is to change what people are thinking, I guess.
Change a relationship with them?
Maybe, yeah.
Let them see that you're not just a stuffed shirt, that you actually do something fun every now and then.
Yeah. That would be one way. And it would be a signal. It wouldn't be because it naturally came up in the conversation. It'd be like, I'm purposely telling you this for a reason, because I want you to know that I'm not as you would expect, Yeah,
you mentioned some game. Is that a game?
StarCraft.
Yeah. That's an actual thing.
Yeah, it's an actual thing that a lot of people you do spend a lot of time on, and generally those people don't get a lot of other stuff done because StarCraft is so prevalent in their life.
Okay. So it's like Dungeons and Dragons, though.
Well, Dungeons and Dragons is more social. It's I mean, what you could say, it's a game. Yeah, Dungeons and Dragons is a game, but you get together with a bunch of people for Dungeons and Dragons. That's usually in person, and you're very creative and everything like that. And StarCraft is a video game that you play on your phone or your computer, and you're probably, communicating with people through a headset and stuff, but it's
about the game.
It's about the game. Yeah. I've never played it. I just know from other people who are maybe married to StarCraft players.
It's one of those things that isn't necessarily a virtue that you would want to be ashamed of and hide from the public if you were doing it on your phone because of its time demand, inappropriate time demand.
It depends on the group you're with, though. Like if you're in a business meeting with people that they expect a certain level of productivity from you, then maybe signaling your vice of StarCraft could potentially harm your business relationship, but maybe that's what you want. You want something switched in these people's brains so that they stop thinking of you as such a professional go-getter,
Because you don't want the raise or the advance in the company. You want to just be left alone.
There might be other reasons. I don't know. It's a made up scenario that maybe I didn't think through.
Right. No, and maybe that is right, because I don't want to be added, I don't want to be added to the think tank group that you're talking about doing. I play whatever StarCraft in all my spare time, and I want to keep my spare time as maximum as possible. If I can work 6 hours here for my 8-hour shift, I'd be happy to do that. And I'll give you your reports that you need. I'll do everything that you require, but I'm going to get it done in 6 hours. And when my contract, when I met the requirement for the day, I want to go home because I've got things to do. And I'm a StarCraft guy. It's just who I am. You can't fire me because you don't have anyone else hired yet to cover the things I'm doing. Yeah, and I'm not going to play it at work. I'm just going to leave work early when I finish my daily tasks. Don't give me any more tasks. I think that's the way most people think about work anyway. That's what they say. If you hate your job, if it's a rut, if your work is a rut, that's the way you're thinking about it. I want to get into my life. I'm sorry I have to be here, but I'm here cleaning these toilets.
I'm here because I have to and not because I want to, which is my attitude about this trip to Canada. I'm going because I have to, not because I want to. If I had the choice, I would totally stay home. If I felt like I had a reasonable choice that honored everyone else involved in the band, then I would totally stay home.
And maybe we bring this idea up again when we talk about the book next week. That certainly directly applies. That situation is a direct situation to your habits.
Well, and I've already purchased my flights and they're non-refundable, so I have to come to the conclusion that it's a good idea that I go.
And it's going to be one of the best trips you've ever taken.
It better be.
Because that's your proactivity, your intentionality is that it's going to be. You'll probably even have great conversations while you're there. Different than you would have if you were in your own hometown at practice. Let me finish out the God idea.
Now, you do have a God conversation on our calendar for in a few weeks from now. Is there anything that you want to save for that, or we're going to...
This concept. So one concept is that we covered is that you expect that God's going to reward you.
Okay.
I just want to share a poem that I may have shared before. It seems like I have. But if you're asking for what work you should do and what virtue should I follow, whether if you're signaling, you're not actually going to follow the work. But if you're going to do work, what do you choose? The poem is, Father, where should I work today? And my love flowed warm and free. The Lord pointed to a spot and said, tend to that for me. I said, oh no, not that little spot. For no one will ever see, no matter how well my work was done, not that little place for me. And then it's, dear child, search that heart of thine. Art thou working for thee or me? For Nazareth was a little place, and so was Galilee. So that's the whole poem. But indicating that the Savior's work, potentially the greatest person on the whole earth and the God of the universe, went to a very small town to do his work. And no one really saw him. There were a few people in the town and people from neighboring communities. That whole work was done, if it was the most magnificent work of the universe, was done in private with just 200 people around it. So are you working for thee or me? So that's the direction. If you're going to have virtue, you want to identify where your virtue is based. If the virtue is based in a God and you're doing the work for the God, it doesn't matter where you do your work or who sees it. If you're working for the people, for your ego, and you need everyone to see what you're doing, then that's your reward. You're not working for the God above your virtues. And then what you do is also what you want to do. You do what you want to do. And we're going to be talking about wants in the future too. So I want to just identify this. It comes from Henry David Thoreau. He says, if you follow your dreams, he's talking about it's in Walden. It's one of the concluding phrases of Walden. He says, you'll have success unexpected in common hours. He describes it a little more flowery about following your dreams. If you pick a dream and identify it and work consciously toward it, you will find that you have success unexpected in common hours. So in normal time, you're not going to have to work extra for it. You'll be blessed is the general idea there, the concept. It's that blessing. It's that compensation that Emerson talked about. All of this is that if you're actually virtuous, rather than just signaling virtue, it should benefit. You should receive the benefit from that, which brings up your challenge.
Do you think it matters what virtue you're virtuous with? What group you're virtuous to?
It seems like half of the world is, the Palestinian Muslim thing, Hamas, the people who are supporting terrorism and that type of thought. That's half of the world is still following that virtue. Iran and Russia, or I don't know who you could apply is on that side that still thinks that you can kill the other people and take over their land. So that idea is still a virtue that people promote.
And are they receiving successes and compensation? I mean, they're receiving their rewards, right? whatever rewards they're receiving them. Maybe they're not godly rewards, right? Because whoever's on the right side, whoever's on the God side, is receiving God rewards.
Are you rewarded? And that's why you take God out of the picture and just say it's the universe, it's karma. Karma, instant karma. Of course, they're getting rewards, whether you put God on the other end of it or if it's just a circumstance and a what consequence.
Yeah, consequence.
But it's just a consequence. Karma, God did it.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes karma is instant and sometimes it's years
delayed. Yeah. And from Emerson's statement, sometimes it's years with interest on compound interest, and you get a lot bigger than what you actually put into it. I think the problem with is the signaling. That's what I was more impressed with on this topic than what virtue. We talked a lot about what virtue you follow. Doesn't matter what virtue you follow. It matters if you're signaling it or if you're actually acting it.
I agree with that. There's no walk behind the talk, right?
Let's use an example. I want to use the example of the tariffs and Donald Trump. So President Trump using the tariffs. Is he signaling with those tariffs? Tariff signaling.
He keeps delaying the implementation of the tariffs that he's saying he's going to impose. So he's using them.
So could you call that a signal?
I don't follow politics very well. So this is my understanding is that he's threatening with tariffs and then somehow he's able to delay them because Mexico's like, oh, hold on, let's talk about this. Or Canada's like, I'm going to impose a tariff too. If you're going to, then we're going to as well.
Yeah. And that type of thing would be a trade war. Trade wars that they're afraid of happening.
If it actually puts into place.
Yeah, so if they never had a chance of going into place, if they're just a negotiation tactic, then they're signaling. But I think all negotiation tactics, if you're negotiating with someone and you're throwing out a straw man, you're throwing out this is what I expect we will do if you do that, or boundary, set up a boundary. Those are all signals. Signals are valid, I believe. It's valid to signal. You want to signal the tariff is going to be 200% on whatever. Just because if you don't do this, your tariff is going to be, your penalty will be that. So you're signaling that penalty, and it does take some guts, some grit, you have to have something about you to actually do the task, to place the tariff in place and say
courage.
No, it's effective.
Maybe
Courage. Yeah, we're now enacting this tariff. And that's what the markets had a problem with trying to decipher in everything that Donald Trump's doing with the tariffs. That's why it's in flux right now. It's down. And then people are saying, well, that's because Donald's a bad guy. President Trump's a bad guy. And so the market's falling and it's going to crash and we're going to go to depression. And, they're just trying to signal fear into the people.
Yeah. And it is scaring some people though. That's the thing.
Yeah, there is fear out there.
There is fear.
And that's why the protests are building up, because they have people who don't know what to do. And they say, here's an action. This is all bad that they're doing. The action you can take is stand in front of the courthouse with these signs. And so they do it. Yeah, I'm happy to do something. But they're just virtue signaling. They're signaling that this is the right path. I was surprised. The one lady that I did talk to had some thought behind it. I would think that none of them would have had any thoughts behind what they're doing.
Yeah. You made an assumption and then you tested it and found out that it wasn't accurate.
I was surprised that it wasn't accurate, but I only surprised with one. I mean, the other city, I didn't have time to stop, and all the people that were there didn't look like they had a thought in their head.
Well, that's your assumption, though. Did this lady look like she had a thought in her head before you talked to her?
Actually, she was dressed much better than everyone else in the group.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she did look professional. And that's probably why she agreed to talk to me. The other people, and I've seen the videos, people who are actually don't have a brain in their head won't talk to you. They'll say, and put their signs up, the people, interviewers, I watched a recent one trying to interview one of the protest groups. And they just, no, we're not going to talk to you. Why are you having people not talk to me? I'm just a person.
Huh. Maybe you would experience that here.
So I kind of expected that. I wondered maybe they would just shut me down and try to kick me out, say, just leave. We don't need you here. You're asking the wrong questions. You're not part of our group.
Yeah, protests are kind of leaning toward the signaling part of virtue and not the action part. I found out about this app or website. I only saw it just for a little bit, but it sets up a template for you to write to your representatives about issues that you want them to know that you care about. And so it sets up the template email, and then you can edit the text, and then it says who do you want to send this to that can actually do something about it. Like, you pick the issue, and then you have the text, and then it tells you who you actually send it to. Like, because some issues you try and send it to your mayor, but your mayor can't do anything about it. There's someone else that can actually do something about it. So that's who you should be sending your concerns to, So this app tells you who is it that you should be talking to
In regard to that issue.
Yeah.
And it has a list of issues that you can select from.
And then you check box, and it sends out an email for you. Like, it sends your text, either the template text or whatever you've added to it, and it shoots it off to those. And you can do that. You can send them the same thing over and over again so that their aides recognize there's a lot of emails coming in about this issue, and so people are really concerned about it.
And so their staff, their aides look at it. They gather all of that data.
Well, that's all that they can. Like, there's no way that the senator of this area, is there 2 senators for this state? I don't know. There's states have multiple senators, right?
Every state only has 2 senators. They have multiple representatives.
Okay, yeah. So there's no way that the senator, one of the 2 senators of the whole state, would actually read his own emails. So it's the aides that compile it.
And likely it'd never get back to you. Or if you get a letter back, it'll be a form letter back from the office of thank you for your concern. But those form letters most likely don't even get a return acknowledgement. I mean, if you formed up your own email and sent it from your personal email address, then all those groups are doing is just creating statistics. There's this number of people that did it. They probably don't even read the letters or the comments, but they identify from this system is set up to create statistics. It's like a poll of some sort.
I kind of think it's like the protests where you get up in the morning and you send out your emails to your representatives, and then you don't have to think about that for the rest of the day. No more concern. I've done my part.
Done my civic duty.
Yeah.
And do you answer surveys? I mean, are surveys that same way? You feel like you've done your duty. You've answered the survey. The survey's just gathering data from you.
Mm-hmm. And you voiced your opinion.
Supposedly they share it with the right people. Yeah, you voice your opinion on that survey. So is that a virtue signal? I answered a survey yesterday, and all of the questions were stupid. And I told her they're stupid, but you have nothing to do with that. You're just reading it. I mean, the person was just reading this thing. So I framed and slanted to one way or the other. I don't remember what the specific question was that got me to say that directly. That it started with a lie, and it came up with 2 options that were completely, you're thinking they're diametrically opposed. They both happened at the same time. Just something between state and federal governments doing one thing. So they're both going to do it at the same time. It's not a dichotomy. It's not one or the other.
But that's not an option. You can't say other than these 2 options.
Yeah, and that's right. And so she said, choose one. I said, okay. So I chose the state. I said, I'd rather be more local. And that's my vote. But it's not a dichotomy. It's not one or the other. And you had no place to record anything like that. So I think your signal is just a straight yes, no answer. That you can only signal with that. You can't act on that. But I've acted on it because I talked to you about it. I talked with my wife about it. We discussed what the issue was and why it was there. And actually it was on healthcare. It was on whether they should not have, since I brought it up, should the states limit the use of bad materials in foods? Or should the federal government do it? Or should the federal government waive, should it be the state doing that, or should it be the federal government? And I said, they're both going to do it. It doesn't matter. But yeah, I don't mind if the states do it. Let the states do it. Would you support the state limiting the manufacture of goods with these bad chemicals? Trying to gauge the country's view of the healthcare initiatives, the chronic diseases and trying to make things better. But I was just fully surprised on the way that they were phrased and what they thought was true to start with.
I've opted out of surveys in the middle of it because it seemed like it was trying to make me think something about something.
And that's the way this one was. It was trying to push you to the right opinion. And I said, I'm of this opinion. Don't worry about that. So you opted out of virtue signaling. You didn't want a virtue signal for that group because it was pushing your opinion in a certain way.
Yeah, I guess that's right. I mean, I've done that before. I opted out of virtue signaling. I don't think that I thought that it was virtue signaling. Maybe I was signaling my virtue to the survey taker, the survey giver, I guess, by saying, I actually decline.
How I'm using the virtue signal, your answers to the survey are only a signal. They have no action. So you opted out of signaling. Say, I'm not going to signal on your survey because I think it's not of the right stance. It's not where I want my virtue to sit. It's not where I want to signal.
It's not unbiased is what it was. I think it just felt like it was very biased. And so I didn't want to take that survey because then I would be forced into saying something that I didn't really think, right? It's like what you were saying.
Yeah. Right. So this is battling against that first statement that you made that you believe virtue signaling is a sin, is not right.
It's a sin.
You're always signaling, and you get to choose where you signal your virtue.
Yes. Okay. I think that's the meat of it, is everyone is virtue signaling everywhere. They're always, but if it's just a signal and there's no action behind it, then it's a sin, right?
Then it's the typical virtue signaling. If you're actually signaling your actual virtue, then you're virtuous or virtue signaling.
Right. There you go.
But it's a signal. It's still a signal. You're not going to be virtuous in a survey because you can't input how to write that survey, how to rewrite that question, so it's not leading. And they let it on purpose.
They wrote it that way. Virtuous. So ideally, we would all just be virtuous in our own values and our own communities, and not signal to the people that we're with that we're virtuous, but not actually be virtuous.
And that comes out in the book we're going to discuss next week too, directly. It's independence, independent to your own virtues and values, your highest values. So it means independent, not depending on someone else's value and trying to signal that you're part of that group. That group is who I am. I want to signal that I'm with this group, even if I have no idea what their real tenets are. I'm just with the group. I was born in it. I'm American. I think Americans are starting to feel what America is now. I mean, instead of just living in the country, if you're signaling that you're an American, you really don't have any heartfelt values tied to American culture or constitutional law.
Yeah, is there a difference between being a citizen of this country versus being an American? Like, I'm living here because this is where I was born and this is where, I mean, I haven't made any effort to leave. So I'm a victim of
the country.
I'm just here. I have to go with whatever is going on, versus I really believe in this country. This is where I live. I choose to live here. I am not leaving because this is my home, and I'm going to make it better, or I'm going to love it how it is, but this is where I live. I am an American.
And I'm going to do my civic duty. I'm going to answer the surveys that come my way and make my voice heard when I have the opportunity. If they have a town meeting about some issue downtown, I'm going to take my time to go to it and leave my opinion. I'm going to vote in the elections that come up where I have the right to make my voice heard. I want my voice to be heard. So I'm an American. I believe in the country. Or you say, I've not voted, never voted. I don't pay my taxes because I make all my money under the table.
What else to be said about virtue signals or vice signals or just virtuous? How, I guess we'll be talking next week about how you can just be genuinely virtuous and avoid the signaling part.
And that's in the book as a response to the book, right?
Yeah, it was because it's everything. It's all of it. Being a good person, fixing your character, fixing your.
Yeah, we'll identify the overall story of that book first. It's going to be an interesting conversation. I think we'll be able to pull it together, even though we've talked about it for the last 2 months on these conversations. We've said the little snippets all the way along. We're not necessarily going to be so involved in the snippets. I think we're going to do an overview of what it is.
Yeah, if we did the snippets, it would take 7 weeks just talking about each habit, right?
Yeah, each habit. We don't want to read the book. We're not going to read the book. It's not going to be that. It's going to be an overview of why it's important and why it's a classic. That's going to be my overall question. Why is this a classic? What makes it that?
Yeah, well, I better get to reading because I'm only halfway through the book.
You better get to the end. You've got 1 week.
I've got 1 week.
And don't skimp on the last chapters because those may be the best.
If they're anything like the first half of the book, we're going to have to fit 2 months of reading into 1 week.
Well, actually, the public victories do go faster than the private ones. Private ones took 2/3 of the book, actually. Public victories are smaller, but they're more concise because you already have the base of understanding. It was getting that understanding first.
Yeah. All right. Shall we wrap it up? Are we ready?
So we talk about that next week. Yeah, that's our next week thing. I think we've come to a conclusion. Go ahead. Close us out here.
We certainly didn't talk about everything about virtue signals. And I know that if we have any listeners, those listeners are going to have some opinions about it too. So we'd really love to talk more about this with anybody that would like to share their thoughts. So find our contact information in our show notes on wherever you're listening to this on. There should be show notes there with our contact info. And you can find us we have a website, doyouhaveaminutepodcast.com, which I worked really hard on. It's really good,
It's being built, and it's going to be amazing when
it'll never be
functional.
Finished, but when it's functional, yeah.
When it's functional, that's what it is, yeah.
Yeah. So that's all for today, I believe.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you. Have a good night.
Good night.